really funny in some cases too, because you'd have all these dark things and bogeys come up and you're like on the skateboard like, oh look, we're gonna transmute that when you realize in the end it's your power, your power and embodiment of that power is the fullness of that can never do anything to you. It really can't. Hi, gorgeous.
Hi, everybody. Hi, beautiful soul. How are you?
You know what? I can't. I'm gonna say that I'm expanding. How about that? Been in contraction.
I love that. All I can say is I'm really glad that the call's today and not any other time in the past few days because
No, for
your
real.
gal's not being good. I think today is kind of like the first day I've, exhaled, gathered my shit together somewhat. And, I've had a teeth extraction, so I am talking a little bit funny if anyone's noticing it. I've got a swollen mouth. However, we've got a lot shifting and moving in the physical world, like you say. And yeah, I don't know. I think it's just a wild time. So I love the word expanding to sum it up because, we could use a lot of different words that may involve a bit of French tones to them. But let's just stick to the optimistic perspective and
I'm,
put the little bit.
I'm like, if you want to know real talk, don't. I will play with a good game of
don't,
F-bombs.
don't test me, man. Don't test
I
me.
know.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I love that we keep it real though. That is what I love about these shows. It's just always so authentically real. But I kind of was getting to the point yesterday. Obviously, again, I do my Tuesday nights, and I was getting to the point yesterday. I was like, man, I can't talk about the nervous system again. Like I've talked about the nervous system for like 4 weeks in a row because I'm working through this nervous system dysregulation and triggers and shadows. And I'm like, yo, I can't do the same session again. It just feels like I'm in the same loop. So yesterday I did have to kind of take a step back from experiencing it and look at things not just through a different perspective, because I'm already doing that sometimes, but look at things from like, okay, that's going on. What else is going on? Because it really felt like I'm tired of giving it all my energy. Like, yeah, shit's whack at the moment, if we put it in the French,
For sure.
not good.
Real
But
fuckery.
yeah, real buggery. But it really feels like the more energy I'm giving it, the more time and energy and attention, and the more like moping. Like I feel like I'm tired of my own victim energy now. I'm like, okay, yeah, you've had your little moan, your whinge, your sadness, your purge of grief, your emotional let out, and your all this sadness and everything needed to come out. Okay, but now I'm tired of that. I'm bored with that now. I'm like, right, I've heard that, and it's still existing. I feel it. But I'm just not giving it my time and energy anymore. I'm choosing to focus on different things and not to ignore it and escape it. I know it's there, but I'm choosing not to feed it with energy.
Of course. Yep, yep. And
Mm.
I've been in the same road. Like yesterday, I had gone through some deep spaces and I was like, maybe I'll just do a video. But my body was like still in this like there's the thing that's moving its way through and I was like, fine, I would like to just have fun. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
let's just dress up and get a little crazy because at that point, like once it gets too serious, then my body is like starts to shut down.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's exactly what I felt. My body was literally shutting down last week, and it got to the point where I literally had to ring family and was like, "Yo, I need help. I need to have a break. I need to break this cycle. I need to get out of this environment." Hence why I'm in a different environment today, and I'm staying with my mum for a few days, which is that I don't usually come to this environment, so it's nice, different change, and it just feels like we are always presented with a choice, and as suffocating and overwhelming and desperately depressing it might feel at the time, there is actually always a choice, even in those shit fan moments, as I like to call them, when everything
In
is
those moments.
the world, that yeah, exactly. Especially in them moments, that is when there is a choice, and making actionable steps to at least try reach out to people, try and ask for a little bit of support, try and explain what's going on to the right vibrational people. I hate the word try, but for lack of human words, you get my vibe. Give it a go because not,
Yep.
not everyone's going to be on the same open receptive energy. But what I've found is after attempting and attempting and attempting to keep like opening and being vulnerable and helping them and exchanging that energy, I have built up like this ability to be vulnerable and ability to be held in ways that I do need at sometimes. And so
Absolutely.
it's slowly I see the slow progression of like things coming to a form of more ease and harmony. But it's a shame it takes for the body to burn out to get there, right? The body's like, yeah.
Get that shit out of there. But yeah, I would have to say too, it's the right people. It's like very
Mm,
clear who the right people are for certain facets of that, who can actually hold the deepness, not see it as something that's gonna get into a cycle, but they're like, yeah, no, I get you. I can feel that and I can hold that. And then we can kind of dance with each other, right?
oh, exactly that. Mind my mum just pegging out the washing in the background. She's just joining in. It's all right, just joining in the vibes, aren't you?
Hi.
But yeah, it's nice. It is. And you know what, like you say, just going back to that moment of choice, like sometimes we really do need to be given that reflective energy of like, we can either choose to stay in it, we can choose to, like we said, you're allowed to feel it, you have to feel it, you have to feel it to move through it. You're not going to be able to shift that vibrational energy unless you feel it. It's literally the same thing. If you're feeling something coming up, if you just suppress it, then that release is not going to be hard. We just got to learn how to tune in, like you say. You got to get the vibe. Like I've spoken about this same thing for a good few weeks on the trot now, and I've been dealing with the same thing. And I felt like I just needed to look at it through a different lens.
That's I would say that's my favorite thing because I took a trip this last weekend and it was definitely necessary to like perceive
Mm-hmm.
differently, be around other people who can give another perspective and also understand like where my boundaries are and how I want to be direct and in truth with my own energy. So
Yeah.
that's also what I've been playing with because I'm not going to not shy away from the fact that I'm having a deep moment at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like no matter
Exactly.
who makes uncomfortable if I'm around them, I'm like, no, I'm there right now. I'm gonna give it some presence. I'm not gonna stay here, but also I'm gonna be in truth about it.
Yeah, yeah. And think that's why I really vibe with Z because I struggle to not do that. Like if I'm feeling some kind of way, it's probably gonna show, like I'm
Yep.
very, very struggle to hide it or suppress it. Don't get me wrong, I've learned to find ways to not project it and not like express it to everybody around me. But I've definitely, it's my face is it's a book. You can see all the little micro expressions. And I feel like that's the thing though, it's honoring that and knowing that you're allowed to feel that way. You're allowed to do that. That's part of us being in our authentic expression.
Absolutely.
And finding those that honor that vibration and allow you to be in your fullest expression and don't make you feel uncomfortable about that.
Absolutely. That's the vibe where it's at. And it's kind of for me, I like to experiment with that and see and also test where my body and my nervous system is in talking to people because of course like I will be like I respect that and also like that's not my perspective and I don't like agree with that. I don't go into those spaces. So to have people be able to hold that too and be like, "Oh yeah, no, I can see your perspective too." And maybe there's a connection there, then that can work. But that has been a big dance where it's just been the right people.
Mm-hmm.
I've been totally
Yeah.
out and vulnerable, and I was like, that really wasn't the space for me to do that.
Oh, yeah, and that they are. I find them the hardest times because it's like I struggle with that rejection. I do struggle with it. I won't lie. Even
Yep.
now, I'm very confident in myself, and I'm very assured in who I am and who I am as a person and stuff. But I don't know. There's just something about being so vulnerable and it not being seen in the way that you intended it to be seen. Like it is a funny thing and it definitely still triggers me now, even though sometimes I can still see the other perspective. And I recently had a conversation with someone and I could see their perspective. But in my opinion, I was just like, but how did you not see my intention towards that was genuine of like love and support and just like an exchange between the two of love and family and never anything with like malicious intent. But it's interesting how people do perceive things sometimes of their own because what have they've got that going on themselves, including us. We might do that, from
Oh,
someone
absolutely.
else's situation. But it is being a human is so interesting navigating this, like you said, this dance with the spiritual world, and
It is.
especially now we're consciously doing it so much more so than we ever have.
Absolutely.
This is new territory. There is no blueprint for this. There is no, set rules or way to do it. We're all just kind of figuring it out as we go. And that's why I don't think anyone can kind of claim to be an expert, because no one's done this before in a human body. So we are kind of all just figuring it out all at the same time as we go. And, we just got to kind of honor that.
Yeah, yeah, it is a really big self-honoring piece. And also knowing too, like for me in every given moment, it's a new step. And I'm like, I have no clue.
Mm-hmm,
I
mm-hmm.
know myself in that. And also I will kind of tear that down too, because there's a new facet of myself that I'll know in the next moment. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
right. We're building these bricks as we're walking on them because we have been so used to that control, slavery, dark, all of that bit where it was just a pattern over and over and over again, and that's not the pattern anymore. So,
Yeah, and it's interesting. I'm glad you brought that up because it brings us to kind of the theme of what we want to speak about today a little bit. Because I got asked a question yesterday, and it really triggered like some thought patterns and like cognitive things going off. Because I was like, okay, this is interesting. I never thought about the fact people don't think about it this way. So the question I got asked was, why is everyone talking about like the darkness and this war and the spiritual war, and like the darkness is not still existing? And so I wanted to kind of, I'll share a little bit on my perspective. I answered that question at the time on the group, but I also wanted to get your perspective because I absolutely love, the energy that you bring. And, simply for me, as I said originally, was the energetic realms that are going on, and how that's shifted. So I definitely feel like we're no longer in the same place that we were in the energetic realms from 2020, 21, 22. For 2023 and 4 and onwards, it started to shift a lot. And what we are seeing now for me is more like a illusionary picture of what needs to be torn down in people's programs. So that's kind of my take on it. But I guess when there's still dark things happening and still a lot of things going on in the world, people maybe would still have that question. So I wonder, what do you think? And, how do you see that, my darling?
I mean, this is such a great question because I love talking about the dark aspect
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like there's so many different perspectives out there and what that is. And for me, that dark period was deep. It was
Yo,
deep. And like
if you
was
know,
in
you know.
it. Yep, exactly. It was in it and in it and in it. And when that started to lift and it was like a choice of like, no, I just don't have to be there.
Mm,
Right. I felt the separation, but also that's still there. Like I can, it's still there. It still comes up. Sometimes people are talking about it or political stuff or stuff like that, which kind of doesn't really resonate in my field. But it's me having enough separation and choosing not to be in that.
yeah, 100%.
So the vibration
100%.
of it, yeah, the vibration of it is different because I'm like, no, because there's another picture here and I can feel the vibration that we have shifted into or that we perceive to shift into. Everybody has a different perception of that. And so like I don't deny that it's not there. It's there. I know like there is an aspect of it. We're in an infinite universe. Of course it's there.
Yeah, yeah, of course. And that's the thing. It's so hard to put it into human words when you're so used to just kind of rolling with it in the energetic realms. But in the way, simply put, I see it, we had I loved how you explained that as well. Thank you for that. You have the different, Dolores Cannon explained it really well. We have the warriors. And I think a lot of us that fought the darkness, whatever word you want to put on it, again, human
Sure.
terminology, that worked with restoring the right vibration onto the planet
Right.
Earth,
Right.
which words you want to use. We definitely had this like mission, this purpose, this ability to see things on a different level, ability to feel things in buildings and places and knowings. And that's not gone anywhere. That's still, we all still have that ability.
Yes.
But for me, what shifted was exactly like you said, in 2020, it was like this call to arms. It was like this frequency that went out to all warriors of, you have to rise now. This is your time to rise. And it was like there was no choice. I mean, I got on a coach and went 4 hours on my own to go join a protest because I needed to be around people that was of the same vibe, and and connecting in to know that I wasn't alone in this, because I was looking around me to people that were connected and spiritual and aware, but then they weren't feeling what I was feeling. They wasn't drawn to do that, and I was kind of like, well, I need to find people that are. And so, like you said, that call to arms came, and it was this deep need to just go deeper into that and question everything and pull everything down. And, then the energy realm started to come into it for me more. So I was doing energy work, but it got more into those layers. And even down to like what we call darkness. Like this lorry's going past. Excuse me if it's very loud. Excuse me. Yeah, even down to what we call darkness. It's such a funny thing, isn't it? Because we have human words, and don't get me wrong, the experiences I've went through, that was in no way of a nice, lovely heart vibration that I've experienced. Furthest thing you could possibly think from it. However, what I've learned over the years is that those frequencies weren't necessarily these big, dark, powerful things that I actually once perceived them to be. There was kind of like little puppets from higher powers, and it was all a game. It was all like a big video game in this warfare, trying to get this energy and take this away and take this person's consciousness. And really, it was a battle for the soul. That
Totally.
was the whole point. You know, they wanted to take people away from their soul path, to take people away from awakening, to take people away from their soul integration of the ascension. And some people they succeeded, but a lot of them they didn't. And that was because there was so many people. My ears are ringing now. So I'm like, oh, you're talking about us?
Yep.
You know,
I know.
okay. Yeah, it was so many of us that kind of there is it's difficult to put into human words in it, you know, and to describe it on a human level, because in truly I wouldn't have tried to explain it back then either to people that weren't on that vibe, because you would have really sounded insane. You know, it's only now that you can kind of translate it in a different way and see things for how they were.
Totally.
But even still, it's very difficult, I think, to put it into human words. Like, it literally is like on the movies, demon fighting, hunting, removal, clearing,
Totally.
possessions. It's the same thing. Like, where do you think that stuff comes from? It is the exact same thing that goes on. That's what a lot of us were called to do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was such a deep space. And I had a few people that I worked with that were on the same level, but a lot of it, like, I literally went and lived in the mountains and
Hmm,
like
hmm.
transmute it from there, and had a few pinnacle people that I would talk to for certain dynamics. But it was every day, it was all night long. It was like, okay, getting up, this is the location I'm headed to. There is some deep stuff here. And so it's like, I have all my tools in my bag. I'm this little hustling. I got like my whistle, my
Dora the
drum.
Explorer of the spirit realms, like, I'm coming for you.
Here we go. And so it is. It was like, and like a spaceman type of a situation. I'm like, there's the location. Let me go stand right here for a second. And then it just deeper and deeper and deeper. And all day long, I'd be with these guys and demons
Yeah,
back and forth and the deepness. And it did get to a point where I had fun with it, because otherwise it was getting way too much. And then it
yeah,
got deeper than that. And I was out. I was out for a really long time. I didn't work. I
yeah.
was in that phase just doing it 24/7. And it was one of those fights where it was literally like death all day long, you know?
Literally, I know. And it's just a weird thing
You
because
do?
it's like, no, if you don't know, you know, but if you know, you know, it's really oh, yeah. And I think for me, the way I experienced it, I was experiencing it all the way through my teenage years, physically, mentally, spiritually, around me, externally. It was in all ways. I was being attacked every single day, like I say, all day, every day. And I really didn't know what the Jeff was going on. So it took until, getting into tarot card reading. I mean, I was quite young, I was 17 when I started tarot card reading, but still, it then took later on, about 19, 20, to actually understand the different layers as I got into mediumship and I started to work with protection, like deeper protection and clearings. And then when I went to Morocco in 2022, I was about 25 then. I've spoke a little bit about this before, but it truly was for me completely game changing, because I'd been non-stop attacked, like you say, day in, day out. And it just got to the point where I had just thought this was how everybody else lives. Like, this is just normal. Like, this is just a
Totally.
normal thing that no one really speaks about that much.
I remember
It
like
really is.
during some of those times though, and I would be on with a client or I'd be out helping with a land. I've had several times where my car just broke down and was done because the energy was that intense. Couldn't keep a line on with somebody, so I had to switch back and forth the phone. And I was like, we're just gonna keep going.
Oh, that one. Oh man, that one is the worst. That happens to me all the time. The technological interference. I think they know because it stresses me out the most. But the car problems as well. It's like, yeah, like you say, like, but for me, I wasn't consciously aware. And like going back to in Morocco, when I learned how to access my earth angel power and how to transmute that frequency off this earth plane and how to work with changing the frequency and raising my vibration and like almost essentially getting rid of it off earth into it, reclaiming it back to source. Once I learned how to do that, it really felt like you haven't got the power over me anymore at all. And when they came to, send a little juju that they did in my tent in Morocco as I'd arrived to the desert, I remember laughing and thinking, you can't do that and you have no power over me now. And it was a real like changing point of the game. Like, oh damn, she's here to play. And I didn't realize we could do that stuff. I didn't realize we were here to do that stuff. I didn't realize that was purpose. And once I kind of surrendered to that and accepted everything changed. And, the first thing I wanted to do was help other people have access to that too, obviously. And yeah, I think it's so important to talk about it because we talk about it a lot because it is darker frequencies sometimes. But in the same sense, if we don't talk about it, we're never going to gain that education, awareness, and knowings on how to deal with this frequency if you ever incur it.
Absolutely. And I think it's so important. It's again, like I always like to talk about it, even in the spaces where they're like, well, that's not occurring anymore. Well, no, it's not. And also, like, if I'm on my own game board, because this is entirely a game, my body knew that when she was
Mm.
super young, and she would like tell people literally, this is not the game that I want to play because it's stupid. Like, I don't know why you guys are doing that.
Yeah.
Um, but
Mm-hmm.
if I'm on my own game board, and I'm looking at some of these dark pieces, there, it's a natural facet of the growth that is really funny in some cases too, because you'd have all these dark things and bogeys come up, and you're like on this game board, like, oh, look, we're gonna transmute that. When you realize in the end, it's your power, your power and embodiment of that power, is the fullness of that can never do anything to you. It really can't. It can try. It's just a little cross interference for you, allowing yourself to be fully in your own power, to be seen in that way, and to own your own light. Right. So it was good parameters for that. And we did,
For sure.
yep, we did do a lot of transmuting
Yeah.
spaces. And also now it's like that was a good game. I don't want to play it again.
Yeah, exactly that's exactly what I was just thinking because it became to a point of like, you know, how long can I keep being this like gateway for lower freak? Because like when I realized actually they're not just coming to attack me, they're coming to get freedom because through me they can find like recycling back to source, so they're no longer suffering on this earth plane trying to gather energy because all they're trying to do is gather loosh, gather food, gather frequency of like energy to fill up their being and feed probably to their own people above them. And so it's like if they can end that cycle for them, they're also ending programs and cycles and pain that they've been experiencing. So it's in essence setting them free as well as setting yourself free and everybody else that we're experiencing negativity from them free. And so kind of it's like a win-win situation. But in the overall, it can feel I have had times where I was terrified, upset, frightened, and all these different things. And I guess for me, it shifted a lot just before I had kids. And it was kind of like, I'm no longer wanting to play this role on this earth plane anymore. I don't want to be this conduit for a gateway to the other realms, like find someone else. And so my role shifted a lot in terms of being even a reader. I worked a lot with the medium at Spirit World, being a medium and doing all that stuff. And I kind of shifted from doing that and clearings and entity removals and everything like that to more working with people's higher selves and working with, the quantum realms like yourself. And so I think that shift came pretty naturally for a lot of us, which to me indicated that warrior, that need to fight for us souls, because trust me, there was fights for my soul, literally near death experiences on a soul level, which if you'd have had that in the body, it'd take months to recover. But you kind of just got to get up and deal with it when it's a spiritual one. But truly near death experiences of the, awful experiences. But then seeing it and thinking, we no longer have to go through that, clearly, because none of us are fighting it at that level. Like that level of need to be on the front lines, fighting that energy, protecting the souls, protecting the collective, that really backed down in
Yep.
2022.
Yep.
Going into 2023, that was the cooling off period, especially what I felt. And then I ended up pregnant in 2023. So my journey was like, okay, this is where we're going. You know, my body knew I could not do that role and carry children and have young babies because I couldn't have demons coming in to get to the next realm while I've got a little babies in that environment. It's not right, you know.
Yep. Yep. I know. I feel that shift. It was
It was a
end of
natural shift.
2023. Yeah, end of 2022, 2023, running in there, I knew that it was ending. And it
Mm-hmm.
was also just giving that up as a big identity because I spent so long.
Right.
I call it like suffering, they're suffering entities. They're just things that are working in their own pain. And it was something that I did. It was a mission. I loved doing it. I would go out and look at these beings and know that they had a heart too and give them a
Right.
way to shift into something else. You have a choice to
Mm-hmm.
shift into transmutation. And so like it was a big like laying down of all of my weapons. And we don't have to do this anymore. And that was like a grieving right there. Like it was huge. I
Really
spent,
was.
yeah, I spent so
Mm-hmm.
long grieving that.
I feel that. I feel that deeply. And I think it was like, it was this kind of, as same way as we got the call to arms, we got the call to kind of like go, okay, we're not doing that anymore. And like you say, it was a whole sadness. And I remember that shift from being afraid and being not in my power and not understanding the role and into seeing them as beings that were also suffering and needed love and needed healing. And I remember teaching other people that and having people crying and feeling it themselves, experiencing it. And this shift in the perspective shifts the divide between this good versus evil. Everything is frequency based at a different level, based at a different tone. And we get a choice on where we want to set our frequency. And, you know, as we shifted from doing that role, I think it opened us up to being less, well, me personally, I can only say less stuck doing one job and like one thing, you know, and less like stuck in the reader, clearer, transmuter. You know, it helped me be more expansive and it helped me expand and less limitations to everything, to myself, to the concepts, to energy. All of it made a lot more sense after.
Yeah, yeah, I did. There was a lot of clarity in it. And there was also like we're in a new space, new platform, like something that we haven't ever seen or created. So that was a whole nother level of uncomfortability. You're like in this open space of
Literally.
I haven't seen it before and I'm not pulling from old stuff. It was just this pause period for a good period of time until my nervous system was like, we can try something different.
No, but I get that. I get that because don't get me wrong, it's not exactly been plain sailing since 2022, 23. At the end of that time, it's not been easy. But I think for me, as much as the lower I had lack of human words, as much as the lower frequencies were triggering internal healing always, I don't believe they can create their own frequency in someone's body. I think they have to attach onto something that already is there. So it's already guilt, sadness, pain, wounds that already exist within your own system. So in essence, the more we heightened up, the less accessibility to us they had anyways. But in the same respect, it kind of felt like it was the necessity thing to move out of this 3D earth. We had to move out of this like good versus bad, higher versus lower, da 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 da. It was like we had to shift out of that paradigm. Like, don't get me wrong, again, things have experienced, the things these frequencies have done and did, and you know, all of that darkness, that shit is dark. Let's not
Yep.
with a bow on it. It's not how we're going to go into that frequency. But I suppose as someone that older frequency for a newer plane, I'm like my internet. Is it good? Is the internet going? Is it good? I think we're
Right.
okay.
How are we with this? You
But
don't
yeah,
have the same parameters or words around it, because
no,
we did have that like duality and polarity running through there. So it was like good or bad. Or like there's none of that now. So the bodies are like, I'm gonna just test this. Ah, right.
yeah,
They're walking around like
right,
little babies because they haven't really experienced that facet of things before. So it's really beautiful and unique and also can be quite uncomfortable depending on, where you're at in your own nervous system and how you want to create because it keeps you super present.
right. And I think it can be uncomfortable because when you realize that that external influence is no longer that huge factor to the dysregulation, there's no one to blame. And it's kind of like, oh shit, this is my shit, and you really have to take like
Oh,
accountability and you have to own it. Yeah. And yeah, so definitely from 2023, I have been on like a deep owning my shadow shit
exactly,
because I
exactly.
will say before that, I was definitely going through my own shadow stuff, but I can't be definite on how many times it was an external influence to lower my frequency and throw me off my path,
Yep,
and how many times it was a genuine shadow purge and reclamation of truest self, because that shit was blurred lines for a long time. And in my personal opinion, there were a lot of attempts to take us away from our path
totally.
that were not necessarily what our higher selves chose for us in our ascension path. They were like
Right.
external um
Little distractors, I call them. They'd like
yeah, yeah, like
they'd be placed in
yeah,
there that are, and then the human
yeah,
beings be like, yeah, okay. They kept going.
yeah,
They kept going into
yeah,
that. Yep, over and over again.
exactly. Because
So
we didn't consent to that, and there were so many things we didn't consent to as a collective. Like we came down here to ascend, but a lot of souls didn't consent to being in the karmic wheel, to being completely indoctrinated to a 3D matrix, to forgetting every bit of wisdom and knowledge of their soul and their families and their external self, other than being human. Like we didn't consent to a lot of this 3D matrix shit that we are breaking down and have broken down a lot of the so over the past 5 years, but I suppose what we then had to figure out was what are we going to consent to now we are consciously
right,
aware.
right.
And that was like the discovery period of, okay, what energy are you going to allow to infiltrate you, whether that's spiritual or television or medicinal or
Exactly.
food that you're eating or the people you're surrounding yourself by or the relationships that you're in or the job that you're in, whatever it is that you're programming yourself with. It's making a conscious choice to know what is affecting your energy and how that's affecting internals, not blame it on anything really anymore, because we are the ones that have to kind of accept that everything that's being purged right now is our own shadows a lot of the time.
Exactly, exactly. And I'm gonna circle that again because owning it is it's the hottest game you can get.
It's
Because I
hard.
was in the blame game for a hot second. Even sometimes
Mm-hmm.
as it passes through and I'm like, oh look, I did
Oh,
do
I get it still
that.
now. Still
Yeah.
now.
And you were
Yeah.
talking earlier about beautiful souls in body who hadn't experienced that dark period. And now I'm surrounded by them and I'm like, so you didn't, okay.
Yeah, that was me. I was like, you say what now? You had no idea.
And I was thinking about this the other day. I'm like, you don't, wow. And sometimes my body's like, well, fuck.
It's like my brain was a bit baffled, like because I see and value the level of like
Yep,
again human words, but level of advancement, if you will, that there are in spiritual
totally,
capabilities, skills.
totally.
But yeah, I was like, you never even experienced one form of conscious attack or like a dream attack or a possession attack or like nothing at all. Like,
Right.
what do you mean? I was shook as to my no glasses smashing, no cars attempted to crash it in, no nothing. Like, what? And I suppose it really made me question, wow, we really got used to living in fight or flight. We really got used to living in survival mode real quick and got adjusted and desensitized to a very intense reality. And I feel like now the reason why my nervous system is so whack at the moment is because it is finally processing a lot of those years of being in extreme fight or flight survival mode to survive. Like literally, there was no other way. You had to survive, and so you had to do it. And so now it feels like my nervous system is like, okay, you can breathe and you can actually release these experiences. But now my body's feeling it all at once. And that's where the feelings of unsafe and not stable are coming from for me. So I'm definitely still purging those years. But in a way, my brain's like, wow, that shit was normal to me. That was just normal life. That is insane.
Yep, it is. It was so normal to be in control, to be in these spaces. And for me, like now my body is, okay, this is an okay time to do this because this isn't going to allow me to be in a space that is sovereign, free, giving not from work and hustle, not to push, not to force. And so I'll go through those periods like I did this last weekend where my body just pumps out a lot of cellular memory of what that was like. And
Mm.
like this is not going to work. We're going to go through probably about 4 years of the ritualistic abuse in one day. just to get
Right.
the
Yeah,
rest
yeah,
of
yeah.
that out. And
Mm.
it's surrendering to it at the moment because of course the nervous system is going to dysregulate for a period of time until
Right.
it realizes that it doesn't have to do that. So, but yeah, it took me like this last weekend, like, okay, I'm in that dysregulation and I'm gonna give my body the space. And also it's noticing now that it can choose not to be that way. So if it's knowing doesn't have to do that, then it's more easily able to let up on cellular memory that is causing it to be in spaces that it doesn't want to be in.
Right. Right. Oh, I totally agree with that, what you just said there. And thank you for sharing that too. Again, such a vulnerable experience to share because, like, when we're going through it, that's what I love about me and you because we just share the realness of going through it. None of us are saying ever that we're exempt from feeling those waves of these rides with you. And I think that's the point. We're all collectively, as a collective, experiencing these sheddings and releasings. But definitely what you said about like the 4 years worth of energy of being released over a day or 2 days, like that's genuinely what we're going through right now of years worth of either, childhood abuse, trauma, any form of trauma that we've all experienced is if your body is because of the fact that that darkness, lack of better words, has shifted from the human plane a few years ago, and it's not like intensely trying to drag the whole through. But yeah, all I was saying was now it's time for the nervous system to feel the years worth of stuff we've not been able to feel because of the timeline and because of the energy, the darkness, the heaviness. We wasn't able to process it. Now that that's shifted out of the plane, we are finally able to like physically move through that, but it means we have to feel it to heal it. And that right now we're just in the feeling bit, and it's painful because we're releasing the cellular memory of what we all experience.
Yep. And I will have to say for this though, it is shifting into a space where it's not as intense to go through the process. It's more of a space where the body's like, I can actually do that. I feel safe doing that. And knowing that it has a choice not to be there. And I think that's the biggest empowerment piece that, if I could say anything for you guys would be you're empowering yourself now to really, really, truly be yourself. And it's really exciting that our bodies are giving us information and going, hey, look, I can move through this now. This is great. I'm going to move through
Yeah.
it. Even though it can suck, it can be really deep. On the end of that, my body just gets excited because she's like, I get the ability to be more of myself. Like I get to express
Mm-hmm.
myself more. I don't have to hold back on anything. There's no pressure on anything, and I could just be in creativity. She's like, "Yeah, I will go through the things right now. Let's do
No,
it."
I love that. I do love that because my higher self sees that, like my bigger self sees that in the long run, this is going to be really good for me and it's going to be
Right.
needed and it's going to be and all those things. I think my human was just so burnt out the past few days and last week, and I just got to a point of like physical burnout, and I was just like, my internet is not being my friend today. It was okay. It did okay. Did not well. Not
Good.
that bad.
Yeah, no, no, yeah, it was it was fine. I was like, I know that this is probably going to go through a little bit of flippy stages. We're going to get a little glitchy here because of these conversations. So this is normal, everybody. It has been normal through these spaces.
It really has. I mean, we did a whole amazing video the other day, and I realized when I'd downloaded it that my whole audio was like completely whack, and I was like, "Are you joking me?" The great video, great energy, and the audio was off, and so sometimes it does happen, and yeah, I've definitely learned to surrender to it. And now, if I experience anything, which I did for the first time in a long time the other day, which I noticed, like, wow, I haven't felt this for a long time. I have this sense of such embodiment of power and knowing like what are you even trying to do right now? Like, excuse me, like there is such a lack of fear. And I think that's so important. Like, please don't be afraid of I think you touched on it earlier and I kind of shimmied over it because I'm the same as you. I don't like talking about politics. I don't like talking about anything in like the geopolitical human matrix because my perspective, it is a show. Like, I'm not saying real things are happening to real people. I understand that. I totally agree and validate that. But I don't need to get emotionally invested and attached to everything that's being portrayed out in the mainstream media and that's going on in the planet Earth. I need to focus on my timeline, my experience, and my frequency of people around me. And that's what benefits my highest good. And so I do what I can for the collective and to support the earth. But in terms of getting involved, I just don't see it as what I'm meant to do right now, like it was before. That's not my role right now. And I think it's meant to play itself out in the way that the narrative needs to be played. And I don't always think that's what's been like told and shown and experienced is actually what's currently going on. I think a lot of it has happened and is happening, but I think some of it is also to show what we have experienced and what people have gone through.
I would have to say just to kind of overview this for everybody who's watching. Of course, the first thing I'm gonna say is always question and perceive the way that you're gonna perceive and dive deep into your own stuff to allow yourself to empower yourself. Going through these phases of things, and you guys might be going through these periods where your body is really pumping up cellular memory of stuff. And I know as some of the people in and around me, it's just knowing that it's residual and it's moving its way out is really helpful for the bodies because sometimes we could be in there and the bodies are like, oh no, it's happening again, right? Um, and since we're out of that
So
matrix,
true.
mine has before, she's like, oh gosh, we're in it. I'm like, there's just some residual stuff that's moving through. You're just clearing it out. Oh, right, uh,
Yeah, mine goes into full panic, like, oh no, we're back here.
please.
No. Every time.
I know this is important for myself when I do that I tell my body that because she will be like, I was never gonna do this again. You know?
Literally. I am the exact same.
So if you find yourself in those moments and working with your nervous system, also knowing too to give your body and nervous system a choice of how it wants to move through it, whether that's creative or a cry or a drive or a shift in perspective, because that's what mine does. Very much so, just listen to it because your nervous system now is going to be shifting into it can handle more of your own vibrational frequency and higher versions of yourself to be embodied into your body, and that's what it's wanting to do. It's just working through these phases of like I gotta get good moving on this, and there's some cellular memory in here that I don't know. I know my body the other day was talking to me, and she was going through a process, and she was like, "I'm just slowing you down." I'm like, hmm. It's like
That
having
is so
two-way
funny.
communication with my soul, and I was watching the consciousness and the whole Matrix, and she was like, "I just at this point, I know this is coming up, and I know I'm gonna slow you down." I'm like, "You're so cute. You're not
Oh,
doing exactly what
that's
you need to do."
cute.
So.
Was she just like, oh, it's okay, you need a hug, it's all good.
Exactly, exactly. And then it was me reaching out to people and telling her, you can take as much time as you want with this particular process. We're in no way,
Mm,
no rush for anything. And, you're supported in it. And as soon as she like felt that presence and knowing that there's no right or wrong anymore, there's none of these
sure. Yeah.
reflections in there that are suppressive, she let it go really quickly. And then it was like, okay, how do we want to create with this? But it's definitely talking to the nervous system and going, hey, this might be like really intense right now, but also like you have a choice. What do you want to
Yeah.
transmit?
Yeah, I love that though. I really love that because you do have a choice, and that's the thing. It's just choosing what we want to do with it and choosing how we respond to it as well. And also knowing like I'm one of them that does like to deal with it like on my own, like we spoke about last week.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Well, I've learned that sometimes circumstances mean that there is a real test and it's going to test you to actually learn how to accept help or learn how to be open to accepting help, learn how to communicate those needs. And none of us are exempt from learning those lessons. And if you do feel like you do need help or a break or something, reach out to someone and you might be surprised by their response. Maybe they're waiting for you to ask rather than trying to impose it upon you. So don't be afraid to connect with those that are genuinely feeling like you have heartfelt connections with and just reaching out for a little bit of support.
Absolutely. Yeah, you guys feel into that.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in the same boat as you. I've worked those processes because it was much easier for me to work it on my own. I was like, I'm gonna go
Yeah,
out to the trees and
that's just who I am.
I'm going to work this process. And now it's finding just the right vibration of people and the energy, at least for me in my experience, like it's not going to move through unless I'm direct about like I need support or I ask somebody or I speak up about it or it doesn't move until I do that. So it's one of those now where like, yeah, and it comes really quickly as long as you kind of are like, oh yeah, that's exactly what I need. It's what my body needs right at the moment. Right.
Exactly. I've got a little human that can hear me talking that is kind.
Yay!
He had his morning. He calls me Dad. He goes, Dad, Dad, Dad. And I'm like, I am your mum. And you ask him, you go, where's your mummy? And he'll point to me. Where's your mama? Point to me. And then I go, what do you call me? He goes, Dad. I'm like, okay. So it's just what we're rolling with right now. But yeah, I think that's a really good place to summarize our energies. As soon as I'm being summoned by a little feral 2 year old, not even 2 year old.
Hi, Phoenix.
Little thing. It's got my mum's hair as well. Yeah, but yeah, it's nice. I'm glad we've got this space to talk about things together. I'm glad we've got this honesty and truth and authenticity and no pressure to show up in any other way other than how we are feeling and what we are going through and what we're experiencing and the realness of the situations around us. There is no hiding and there is no fluffing it up. We're not a fantasy life. We are just living the video game reality and riding those waves, and we just try and show up as authentic as we can.
And I would have to say gratitude. It's always my favorite, like being in an experience with you because I connect with you so deep on that level. It's always so fun to work with you. For everybody in here, just an encouragement to be in your own authenticity and whatever that looks like, your own empowerment, however that works for you, your own expression, your own perception, in knowing that you are the creator of your game and you're continuing to play it. And also, there's so many choices out there now where we get to evolve in an expression that is so fun too. It's coming in.
Truly, truly is. And if you guys did enjoy these videos, make sure you do the human stuff and do the following and liking and sharing and commenting and all that human stuff that we always forget to mention, but would really help us connect with more people and cover more subjects as well. Because if you guys have any questions or any questions like what we had today, just drop a message and we can cover that as well.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. We love you guys so
Awesome.
much.
So much love. Bye,
Bye.
beautiful.